Eastern Kentucky, where I was raised, where the wildlife and mountains call my name. I was born to hunt, I was born to guide, a camouflage on a rifle by my side. Just good old country boys chasing dreams in the Appalachian Mountains, a field of streams. From those white-tailed bucks strutting toms, the bugling elks that are on the run. Where those dreams are made, the trophies is our game. The TLC Outfitters is our name. The coyotes run all night. It's music to my ears and in my sights. I've got this hunting fever down in my bones. I'm glad my daddy taught me everything I know. From those white-tailed bucks strutting toms, the bugling elks that are on the run. Where dreams are made, the trophies is our game. The TLC Outfitters is our name. From those white-tailed bucks strutting toms, the bugling elks that are on the run. Where dreams are made, the trophies is our game. The TLC Outfitters is our name. The TLC Outfitter is our name.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to On Air and Outdoors with TLC Outfitters. We hope that you all have had a great start to your week. Hopefully you got to get out and enjoy the great outdoors this weekend, and just hope everybody's having a good start to your week. My name's Trinity Shepherd. This is also Matthew Woolwine. We appreciate you being with us tonight. Matt, how's your week going so far?
Pretty good, buddy. As you can tell, I'm in the wife's spare bedroom again tonight with the turquoise wall. So we'll struggle through this internet connection that I've got and do the best we can.
Hey, that's all you can do, man. Listen, you know, it's 2023 everywhere, right? Even down there in Central Kentucky.
Yeah. I think there should be a rule against false advertising, because we jumped on this internet provider that talks about how fast they are in rural areas, and I believe we got scammed. That's what I believe.
You gotta love technology, man. What would we do without it, brother? So we got so much to talk about tonight, and we're very excited for our guests. Man, what a special show again. So, continuing with this elk theme, we just had a milestone event with Patrick Hayden and the Kentucky Gun Company for the first, I want to call it the first annual Kentucky Elk and Outdoor Fest, but the Kentucky Elk Draw reveal was there. It was just jam-packed. It was amazing. Milestone event for the Kentucky Elk program, bringing some much-needed and wanted attention. We were there. Last week, we had on Joe McDermott and John Hass from the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife talking to us all about that, giving some great, valuable information. So if you've got drawn for a Kentucky Elk tag, go back and check out last week's show. And now this week, we're keeping with the same theme, as we're going to be joined by Kentucky Elk Guide Association President Donald Thomas from Kentucky's Bulls and Beards, and also board member and treasurer, our good friend Gary Grant from Grace Elk Outfitters, man. Listen, I don't know if we can contain all this elk knowledge and all these egos in one show or not, man. I'm afraid we may shut down the internet.
Well, you know what I think is really important about tonight's show is you get all these negative comments from guys that may or may not even be experienced in the elk woods. But you know, we talk about do it yourself versus guides versus whatever the case is. And what I think people need to take away from this show tonight is we got 3 different outfitting companies working together here to promote the resource that we've got and promote this awesome activity that we call elk hunting in Kentucky. And so, you know, this ought to go a long way to show you that the outfitters in Kentucky are working together to help make people successful.
And that is perfectly said. And that's what is Kentucky Elk Guide Association. We're here tonight to hopefully debunk some myths, hopefully cure some anxiety, and to bring some truths that, you know what, even though we may be businesses operating and so on and so forth, the resource is our number one focus. Without it, we don't have business. We don't have hunters. And this group of men and women that make up the Kentucky Elk Guide Association, folks, I'm telling you right now, the best people in the business, the best hearted, minded people, and the people who's got the best interest for our resource and making sure that one of the greatest conservation stories of all time go on into generations to come. So if you've not done so, please like and share this video. Get the word out there about all things TLC Outfitters and tonight, the Kentucky Elk Guide Association. We appreciate everybody for joining us. Our very own Tim Fannin says, "Up, bro. Hope you're having a good week, Tim." Paul, Matt and I have got some good news for you in just a moment. I'm going to announce here in just a second that we're very excited about. I hope you're having a good time down there in Florida. Our number one fans, my mama, says, "Hi, sons." What, Matt?
Make sure Paul knows he's open up his slaughterhouse for the amphibians this year.
That's exactly right. We've got Tim says he got shafted on the elk draw. Oh, our good buddy Jason Kilgore says something went wrong with the draw. They didn't call my name. Listen, Jason, they draw my name for consecutive years and they just throw it back in the hat. I'm convinced, man. I'm 21 years deep, so I know these other people on here feel the same way. My mama said, "Don't feel bad, Jason. They missed my name too." Paul said, "You got tagged." We'll talk about that in just a minute. And look who shows up. Tinsley Custom Wildlife, Justin Tinsley, man. Best on planet, I think. Award winning. Huge congratulations to Justin for all the awards won down to KTA, man. And that awesome giraffe, dude. That giraffe and that monkey was unbelievable. Hey, Paul, guess what, babe? We got good news for you. So we got word today from our good buddy, Scott Sumter, down there. And guess who's coming in?
On the show.
Huh?
Scott's been on the show. Everybody should remember.
That's right. Our family from Florida. Guess who's coming to gator hunt this fall, Paul? Old Matt and I and Corey. We're going to be headed down south come October, right after elk season. We're going to be knocking on that door, hopefully with that big 10-plus foot gator. Knowing Matt's luck, it'll probably be 13 foot. I don't know, but we're going to be heading down this fall. Going to be doing some gator hunting, some iguanas, bow fishing. We are tore up to make our way back down to Florida this fall. Can't wait. All right. How excited are you, Matt? Your first gator hunt?
Hey, buddy, I was excited when you and Corey got to go down a couple of years ago, and y'all scored on that 8-foot plus gator down there. Yep. And I'm just, you know me, man. I like the experiences. I like seeing new property. I like I like hanging out and good camaraderie, and I'm super stoked about getting down there again. I had a great time, Osceola hunting down there, and there's our man right there, Scott, on here, buddy. I can't wait to see you either.
Yeah, Scott Sumter, Wayne Hargabus, our brothers down there. I can't forget John Partain, the man who started it all, started this whole deal with TLC Outfitters invading Florida, bringing y'all in, being our Southern brothers. We appreciate y'all so much. Can't wait to get back down there. Scott, man, you know how we feel, and we appreciate you very much. Look here what Justin said. I don't know what this is all about. You need to elaborate on this. I hope they have enough food in Florida to feed Matt. What's that all about?
Let me tell you something. I don't know how Justin has made it for whatever old age he is, because he eats like a bird, son, like a bird. I'm telling you, we was over in Africa, and I had to eat my plate, half my wife's plate, half Justin's plate, and half of Justin's wife's plate, just so they wouldn't have to throw it in the trash. I'm telling you what, I eat so much, it was embarrassing.
And how many stars was that?
7, I guess. As many stars as they'll give a restaurant, that's how many they earned over in Africa.
That's right. And Gator Paul says, Matt, can't wait, and nature's waiting for you. Your little buddy down there.
Yep, that's good, man. That's a beautiful, beautiful animal you got, Paul.
Absolutely.
You and your wife.
Yeah. Scott, Wayne, John, Paul, everybody, we can't wait to get down there this fall. We're very excited. Hopefully on finishing a good elk season. Talking about elk, man, I think it's time to bring these gentlemen on. I'll tell you what, man, I'm honored every time I get to talk to these two. These two have got an abundance of knowledge when it comes to elk. They have helped harvest some of the largest elk ever taken in the state of Kentucky. They have been around for years. They have brought success. They've got some of the best names in the business, and I'm honored to share this show tonight with them. We're going to bring on Donald Thomas from Kentucky Bulls and Beards, and Gary Grant from Grace Elk Outfitter, our president and our board member and treasurer for Kentucky Elk Guide Association. Gentlemen, thank you all so much for taking time to be with us tonight.
Thank you for the invite, Trendy. I don't know about the ego comment. I'm glad you got a hat on. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah,
all of you's got hats on, but me, I got to shine mine.
Thanks for the opportunity, man. I'm glad.
There we go.
I'm glad you ain't outside.
You might be the only one with a good looking head.
I don't know if I'd say that or not.
I forgot about honorary. I'm sorry, honorary.
Got it. Guys, thank y'all so much for being here. I tell you what, when I think about Kentucky, think about Kentucky elk hunting, your all's names are pop in my mind every time. Just class acts, treat people right, really resource minded, and just an honor and a privilege. I want to say that up front, honor and a privilege to be able to work with you all and to be associated with you all in the same group. This Kentucky Elk Guides Association, a lot of people don't realize, and I'll get Donald, our president, to give a brief history of that before we go into introductions, but before we move on. But the Elk Guide Association was created with a purpose. Donald, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, to start with, it was created and founded back in 2019, Randy. The purpose of it was really to kind of bring our guides together, add some professional guide service to these elk hunters getting drawn. But something that gets overlooked most is we're actually a conservation group also. We've got the biggest desire probably here in the state for this preservation of our elk herd that we've got right now.
That's exactly right. And, I want to bring that to everybody's attention again. There's no doubt that the bald eagle, when we talk about conservation, you got to talk about huntables and non-huntables, but there's no doubt that the bald eagle, American bald eagle, is probably the greatest story of our lifetime about an achievement in conservation coming off the Endangered Species Act since the early 1970s when the Endangered Act was started and the Raptor program was started. But to me, in what I know, the Kentucky elk herd has to be a close second with one of the greatest conservation stories of all time. The Kentucky elk herd, was brought back, been missing since the middle 1800s, was hunting to extinction in much of the eastern half of the United States. Yes, you take a state like Pennsylvania, had elk before Kentucky, but nobody has preserved and conserved and done with an elk herd what Kentucky has, helping seed other states. By far, I think the second greatest conservation story in our lifetime.
I agree with that.
Okay. Very good. Very good.
And what sets us apart from other states that have elk is we have an open hunt. It's not a controlled hunt. When you get an elk tag in Kentucky, they basically give you 500,000 or more acres in a unit and say, have at it, go hunt elk, much like you do in Colorado and the western states. So I enjoy that aspect of what we do here.
Yep. And I couldn't agree more. And you know what? So many people want to, focus on negativity or say this or say that. Here's the facts. 594 people got a Kentucky elk tag this year with a few commission tags and a few landowner tags. Their name is etched in history of few. It doesn't matter. We've been hunting elk since 2001, and it doesn't matter if it lasts 1,000 years. There'll be a few people that'll get to hunt Kentucky elk. Your name's etched in history. You get to hunt elk in your own state or a close by state or a state who's really done great with their elk herd in the hunt of a lifetime like no other hunt across the United States. And a lot of times we focus on a number or harvest only or something like that, but people really don't get the true essence of what a Kentucky elk tag is all about.
That's true. I'm looking for that honorary title also right now, Trinity.
You and me both. I'm nipping on your heels, big boy. So I'm right.
Yeah, you've almost caught up. You're still behind. Just remember that.
Oh, goodness. Donald, we'll start with you. Kind of give us a little introduction. Just tell us where you're from. And listen, how in the world did you get tied up in this whole elk deal and Elk Guides Association? Tell us all about it.
Trinity, that's been a long time ago. I've slept since then. So y'all have to bear with me. You can see my head here. As far as myself, I own and operate Kentucky Bulls and Beards Guide Service. I have for, I'll have to think back, but I first started chasing elk in about, 2005, I guess, probably my first year. 2006, I have to throw my daughter in there. I think in 06, she was the youngest hunter that ever been drawn in the drawing in 06. So I've been at it a little while. And what got me into it, I just like you were saying earlier, I think these elk here in Kentucky is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Myself.
You're exactly right, brother. You are exactly right. Very good. What neck of the Commonwealth are you from?
Oh, I forgot about that part. I left that out, didn't I? That may have been intentional.
Yeah.
L-I-L-Y, Lilyville. Now Lily, Kentucky. You know where that's at?
No, not really.
Same answer I always get.
Yeah. You're from a little dot on the map like I am. I'm from a little place called Gunlock.
Gunlock sounds better than Lily.
Gary, what you got for us, brother?
Well, Gary Grant, owner, operator of Grace Elk Outfitters. And I'm with you guys. I love elk. They always intrigued me. First one I ever heard bugle in real life, I was just hooked for life. And when I first got started was about 2006, and it was pretty neat. I had put some greenhouses up for sale with some property that I had purchased. And a guy came down to get those with his nephew. And he was a businessman and owned several businesses. And he said, I heard y'all got elk in Kentucky. I said, yeah, we sure do. He said, you ever see them? And I said, yeah, I see them pretty regular. And the job I had at that time, I was a forest ranger. So we were in and around elk country a whole lot. And he said, well, I heard they had landowner tags maybe. And I said, yeah, we have that too. So he said, you think if I bought, you could help me buy a landowner tag and kill one? And I said, yep. So that was the beginning of it. I don't remember if it was 2006 or 2007. It was one or the other. And so then later on, I helped harvest some cows and kept moving forward. And then about 2010, I joined forces with some other guides and actually had, multiple guides working with me and trying to coordinate those efforts. And I found that there was, strength in numbers, just like you and Matt right there. And just keep moving forward, keep progressing. And I'm located in Harlan, Kentucky. The old saying is you'll never leave Harlan alive. So song about that, and made famous by a few movies here and there, shows, Justified, stuff like that. And I love it when people are talking to me. They're like, now I heard Harlan's rough. And I'm like, well, are you related to anybody here? No. So, well, are you involved in any illegal drug trade whatsoever? And they're like, no. I said, well, you shouldn't have problems because that's about the only people that shoot each other here. It's kinfolk and people that are involved with illegal drug trade. So,
That's right. That's right. Now, I went on and stole some of y'all's pictures here. Donald said he's going to have to infringe some copyright laws on me. I don't know what that's all about.
We'll have to start watermarking pictures.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Hey, like that mullet.
I like that, buddy. Where'd it go to?
It got too hot. I had to shave it off.
Yeah. Now, this is a passion of yours, correct?
It is. Yes,
Yep.
sir.
And you don't do it any way whatsoever. You're a houndsman.
I am. Yes,
Yep.
sir.
Very good, man.
That was
awesome.
my first Kentucky bear right there. I can't remember what year that was, about 3 or 4 years ago. Actually harvested another one last year with a 44 pistol. So I'm done, I would say, at that point, unless it's a stick or a slingshot.
Now, your daughter got a nice bear too, correct?
My daughter killed an absolute brute last year. They guesstimated at 450. We had a 400-pound set of scales, and scales bottomed out before the bear come off the ground. So we're in the 450 to 5 range. It's a good one.
Yeah. And here's one of your bulls.
That is let me think back. That is a commission tag from a gentleman from Texas.
Yep.
That's been a few years back.
A few years ago. Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Gary, I believe this is one of yours. That's a good bull too.
Yeah, that bull, after deductions and drying and net score, that bull dried out to be 371.
Yeah.
So I would venture to say, with the stickers and the abnormalities between the two, it would have grossed over 400 being green.
Yeah.
The week we killed it. But yeah, that was a really nice bull.
Yeah.
And Gary, I'm sorry, Trendy.
Go ahead,
Without
Donald.
looking, Gary, 370 ought to be top 8, doesn't it?
You'll have to interpret, Trinity. He was breaking up on me.
Say that again, Matt.
I said 371 without looking ought to be top 10 in the state, oughtn't it?
That's where I was going, Matt. It ought to be on the list, but unfortunately, I don't think it is it, Gary?
I haven't ever submitted a bull to the list.
And to me,
guys, if you get on my page, and Trinity may have stole more pictures, I've got a 12x9 on there. Donald knows about that bull, and huge scoring bull. But we my hunters have never really had a desire to submit those, and I'm fine with that.
That brings up one of my questions that, just kind of out of my curiosity. I wonder how many big bulls have been harvested and never been reported and put in that top 10 list. I'd say there's numerous ones.
I do know that one bull that is on that list that's listed in Harlan County. I was on that bull the exact same year. And if the hunter's watching, he'll remember he gave me a deposit and I showed him and his brother 11 bulls in one evening. And that bull finally came out and we were watching them at a distance of about 450 or 550 yards. And that bull was just head and shoulders bigger. It was I want to say it was 368 and like 7/8 on the list. And it was number 2 or 3 for years and years and years. And this is way back. And that guy, he called me 2-3 days before the hunt and canceled and said, buddy, just keep that deposit. I'm not going to come. And I said, okay. I said, any particular reason why? He said, well, I've got a 7x7. I think I can kill pretty easy. I said, oh, okay. So 11 bulls in one evening ain't good enough, including a potential state record. And he just kind of laughed. He said, well, if I don't kill that 7x7, I'll holler at you. I said, okay, that'll be fine. And back then it was before Facebook and anything like that. So I didn't even, for that bull rifle week 1, I just didn't even have a hunter. I think me and my wife went to the machine gun shoot at Knob Creek and had a big time.
Yeah. And, that's something, I've just been curious of. I sit around and think about stuff like that, just how many big bulls have really went unnoticed that's been harvested right here in this state or have actually may have died off. Because I've seen some dandies over the years, and I've seen some hunters miss some absolute giants. I did say miss. That's how they get big.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good. Now, and then I got one more picture here. And this is what I think is our most precious resource. And I know all of us are big into this stuff and try to help as much as we can. But our youth, and this is Gary with a bunch of youth here, and there's no greater work in the world than what we'll do with our youth.
Unfortunately, that wasn't all the kids that were there, but that was a number of them, and that's my daughter right next to me, and the boy in the middle there, he with the black shirt, he was able to kill his first deer. So I think in 2 free youth deer camps, we've helped about 9 youngsters harvest their first deer as young as 6 years old. And so we do this. The guy crouched down with a Bronco shirt, that's actually my pastor. And he's a great guy. And we do this as part of ministry too. And these kids come from different backgrounds and stuff, and we love on them and take them out with their parent or whoever, grandfather, whoever, take them out and do a drop-off hunt in a blind. And man, it's a lot of fun. We feed them deer meat. Sometimes it's the first time they ever ate venison. And I would stand up and show you that my wife's a good cook, show you this belly I got. It's actually a counterweight for hauling elk hams out, like like a excavator, you got to have a counterweight. So, but these kids, they'll eat venison for the first time, either steaks or chili or something like that. And they're like, oh, this is good. Give us some more, and we feed them some more. And then we're like, well, you're eating elk or a deer, either one that it is. And they're like, oh my goodness, so, they think food comes from a supermarket, of course, a lot of times.
That's right.
But yeah, procuring our next generation of hunters.
Go ahead, Matt.
It goes back to those youth search you got, TLC. It goes back to the youth search that we've got, Trinity, for TLC. It talks about not all fast food comes from a window.
That's right. I like it.
Trinity was talking about something. You talk about being something etched in their minds for the rest of their life. that will be etched in their minds.
That's right.
That's right. That boy there that was in the black shirt, we went to his house and dropped his deer off, and people were driving by, and he was yelling. It was nice weather. He was saying, "Hey, I killed my first buck. You want to see it?" Stuff like that. So it was really cool.
What are you putting up there, Trinity?
Bob Hunt said legends, talking about you and Gary. Let me tell you something. He's a legend too, son. He's
right there with them. Here we go with the ego stuff again.
Yeah, he's one of the good ones, man. We appreciate Bob. Bob's done a lot of good stuff. Now, folks, I'm gonna get down to some brass tacks right here before we go on. There'll be no negativity tolerated on this show, and I've already had one comment. You send a negative comment, you're automatically banned. So I don't know how else to put it. This is my show, and this is how I will run my show. We're here for educational purposes tonight. If you want to listen to what we got, we welcome you in, and we're glad to have you. If you're here to be negative and to cause trouble, you can exit out the door, or I'll put you out. So either way you want to go. We're here to talk about elk hunting. We're here to talk about the good things of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And hopefully we're here to shed a little light on some stuff that may help a hunter. And there's no room for negativity here ever. So, I don't know how else to say that, but that's how we're going to run things tonight. So we welcome any and all. Just mind your manners when you come on our show tonight, and we'll appreciate you very much. Now, we have got a lot to cover tonight. 594 folks got drawn for a Kentucky elk tag. And again, there's a lot of questions. I know our phones have been ringing off the hook. We've been trying our best. We appreciate everybody's patience out there getting back, letting us get back with you. And we tried to answer. Right before the show, I had a nice gentleman call me about a do-it-yourself. He said, "Listen, I'm going to be straight up honest with you." He said, "I'm not looking for a guide." He said, "I want to do it yourself." Me and that gentleman sat there and we talked, I don't know, probably for almost an hour, man. I want everybody, no matter who they go with, whether they do it yourself, I want everybody to have success. There's enough pieces of pie for everybody. And I want everybody to do good. Everybody doing good and having success and having a good time. And success is just not a harvest. But everybody having success in the elk woods is good for the Commonwealth, good for the resource, and good for everybody. And that's what I hope. And that's what the Kentucky Elk Guide Association is all about. Now, you all been talking to hunters, Donald and Gary, and even Matt and myself, we've been talking to hunters. Donald, I want to start with you. Kind of what is kind of the number one thing you're hearing from hunters? Maybe you can shed a little light on. They're calling you and they're asking you about what's the number one thing that hunters are wanting to know about. That's the most common thing you hear that maybe we can shed a little light on tonight.
Oh, well, there's a multitude there, Trinity, but I tell you something I've kind of noticed, and the gentleman you talked to, I probably talked to him for an hour there too. I'm not saying the same one, but this was a do-it-yourself hunter, or was leaning that direction. What I've been hearing a lot here lately is on what the guides offer as far as lodging and meals. That seems to be a hot topic on the ones that I spoke with here in the last few days. That's come up quite often. I've had several calls today just asking about that, what the guides would provide and which ones.
Yeah,
that would be one of them.
Okay, very good. How about you, Gary?
A lot of times, I guess people don't understand that, number one, this is a quota hunt, so there aren't many hunters per unit per hunt. And they want to talk about, private land versus public land. And there's a lot of negative information on the internet about public land hunting. Everybody thinks it's like hunting at Fort Knox or Colorado public land or something like that, where there's over-the-counter tags. And that, and then probably the next thing that people want to talk about is this unit draw for the selections that are getting ready to come up, because it's a very confusing process. And we, as the Kentucky Elk Guide Association, Trinity, you're involved with us too. we have recommended that Kentucky change that system to be more conducive to other states, that you apply for a Unit 6 tag where Trinity lives, and you either get a Unit 6 tag or you don't get drawn. And the reason behind that is because, hey, I know Trinity. I met him in Colorado, and I'm from Texas, and he said, come up and hunt elk with me sometime. And I've already got a contact there. I've already got property that I know have elk on them, and I already know where the public land is in Unit 6 because I keep up with Trinity, and that's where I want an elk tag. So it makes it pretty tough for people to wait 6 weeks, and us as a guide service, you guys as a guide service, to wait 6 weeks until this unit draw comes out.
Yeah, very good. And listen, folks, there's a lot of questions, and these are just some of the top things we've talked about. Last week, when we had John Hass and Joe McDermott on there, they answered a lot of these questions and talked about a lot of this, and we're going to answer some of these questions too. We could sit here and talk 3 hours and not cover all the questions, but just know that we're here to help. Give us a call. I mean, we're not hard to find. You can check us out on KEGA, on the KEGA list, or on the KEGA page. You can Google search any of us or check us all out on Facebook. We're not hard to get a hold of, and we'll help anybody at any time. Now, we talked a little bit about that, but let's talk about KEGA in general and the Kentucky Elk Guide Association. So Donald touched base while the Kentucky Elk Guide Association was created. So, to me, the Kentucky Elk Guide Association is a way for guides and outfitters to be on the same level and connect with our Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife, and to provide a quality service to our hunters. And with that seal and being a member, and there's different memberships and there's different things, that holds us to a higher quality and a higher standard. Would that be a correct comment, Donald?
Yeah, I would say that would. Just for throwing over the professional guide service also on these higher standards.
Yeah.
And that's what we're shooting for, and to hold these guides to it. And, I kind of put that out there to every one of them. If you get a guide and they're not a member, ask them why. There's probably a reason.
Yep, that's exactly right. And there's criteria we have to meet to be a licensed guide through the department. There's criteria we have to meet to be a member of KEGA as a professional outfitter. And it's a check and balance system. Go ahead, Gary.
To that tune, though, Trinity, one other thing that I'll add is we wanted a collective voice of unity to present to the commission and to the department whenever we speak about elk. And not only that, but what you said about standards, you can be legal and not be ethical. And so we're trying to establish ethics within guide services and doing the right thing even when no one's looking, fair chase and free roaming and that sort of thing. And we're trying to add that as a standard to elk guides all across Kentucky.
Very well said.
Chime in there just
one
a second.
thing I would add.
Go ahead, Matt.
One thing that I would add is, KEGA has a rules and ethics board, and you can see all the negative comments that are on Facebook, on different pages, and this and that. But the fact is that the Kentucky Elk Guide Association group is trying their best to police themselves and make sure that the guides that are out there and putting their names out there and trying to help people be successful, that we're trying to police ourselves in KEGA to make sure that guides are on the same mentality, that we're all here for the same reason, and that we're all here to protect the resource and the hunter and our businesses all at the same time. And with that rules and ethics committee, that's what that's for, So we're not saying bad things haven't happened in the past, but we're saying we make every effort to make sure that that's not the standard.
And that's true. Let me add just a little bit there on that, Trendy. With KEGA, if they are a licensed guide, we do a little screening before accepting their membership, but we do give everyone the opportunity to join. And I'll just go back to my old saying, they'll weed themselves out eventually. It may take a while. But if it is brought before KEGA, just like you said, we've got a rules and ethics committee. We do bring it to their attention. Hey, we've got an issue.
Yep. And we are a legitimate 501c3 nonprofit organization, association. I mean, there's not favoritism. There's not anything like this. It's everybody venturing forward for the same goal and the same purpose. And that's the longevity of this resource that we have. And to try to bring, a positive spin on it and to try to be held to a higher standard, which is what I think we do. Now, Donald, let's talk a little bit about, you don't have to be a licensed guide. If you're interested in helping out, if you're interested in learning and being caught up, you don't have to be a licensed guide to be a member of Kentucky Elk Guide Association.
Exactly. We've got 3 different memberships. We've got associate, which is anyone. It's $25 a year. For an associate membership, you do not have to be a licensed guide. Then we've got a general membership. You do have to have a commercial guide license. You do have to guide at least once a year to profit from it. And we have a corporate membership. And right now we've got all those involved. And what we're operating on, let's go back as far as the conservation, donations, anything that would help us along here, especially the membership. We need the membership, we need the general public involved in this on the associate memberships, just not commercial guides.
That's right.
And we welcome anybody that's passionate about elk in Kentucky, viewing them, watching them, observing them. If there may be opportunities later for habitat improvement for elk, those habitat improvements are going to help turkeys, deer, quail, etc. too. So, it's a great positive organization, conservation organization.
Absolutely. Our good buddy Jason Kilgore said, each one of you guys, sir, send me a hat and I'll advertise for you.
If he
Tell him I don't wear hats. Look.
Oh, I thought you was wearing a possum hat, Donald.
Yeah, I got my possum hat on.
Yeah. There you go. And folks, we're joined tonight by Donald Thomas and Gary Grant, and that's our president and our treasurer of Kentucky Elk Guide Association. If you've not done so, please share this link, get the word out there about all things Kentucky Elk Guide Association and TLC Outfitters and Kentucky Bulls and Beards and Grace Elk Outfitters tonight, folks. We appreciate everybody joining us. Now, I want to talk just for a minute. The Kentucky Elk Guide Association was able to get a commission tag, and we were able to generate funding from that. And those commission tags are specific what the funding comes from them, what it can go to. Donald, tell us about the good things that went from the money that was generated from that commission tag.
Be more than glad to. That's where we're going to get into our conservation side of it. I'm glad you brought that up. You was reading my mind because that's where I was going next. We actually sold those commission tags. We took 100% of the net proceeds from those tags and put right back into the department and more to the elk program. As of right now, we've done almost $11,000 worth of equipment for the burn crews for the East Kentucky Habitat Initiative. Right now, we have offered a $2,500 reward for a bull elk poaching case over in McQuarrie County, Kentucky. Some of the equipment that we were purchased, I'm just trying to think off the top, is blowers, chainsaw, water tanks, We've got a box blade for them. We've got a loader blade for the tractor with a grapple. Just there's quite an assortment there, and we intend to do that every year. We intend to try to raise proceeds every year, and we just speaking last night. We will try to get involved with this as much as we can on these conservation efforts on these controlled burns, because habitat is what we need at this point. That to me, that's our biggest driver right now is the habitat.
Fire equals habitat, man, and I'm excited. We had a good meeting with Fish and Wildlife last night. We've got our very own fire boss that's with us tonight, and Gary, and there's a bunch of us going to go through that class. And if you don't know about it, you can check out more on Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife. As we said last week, any sportsman or sports lady needs to get on fw.ky.gov. Lots of good information. If you've got a Kentucky elk tag, they've got about a 17, 18, or 19 part series on there, their elk series, that can show you everything from what you're supposed to do as soon as you get a tag, how you select units, even down to calling elk, and about their fire initiative. Fire initiative is to help create grazed lands and natural habitats, a lot of native warm and cool season grasses, and habitat is dependent on fire. And there's just a lot of good information over there. Head on over to fw.ky.gov and check out all that good information. Lots of information on there about habitat work and about all things elk and other wildlife. Very good. Now, the Kentucky Elk Guide Association meets regularly. And folks, if you're a member, you are encouraged to attend those meetings. Tell us a little bit about those.
It's a monthly meeting. We have a meeting every month, an online meeting at the very last Monday of every month. Generally, is what we try to schedule it for. And like you said, everyone that's a member is invited. And like you were saying last night, we had guests on our meeting from the department, and that's what we were going over is these burn initiatives.
Yeah.
That's something else you might want to throw out there. They're going to have that burn course in August in London. We were working on that today. We could probably have that, and we'll have dates on that later on. But yeah, we do have a meeting every last Monday of the month.
Good deal. Now we've talked about a lot. We've bounced back and forth a little bit. We were talking about Kentucky elk hunters. We were talking about the elk hunters. I want to give everybody some dates. Maybe there's some people on here that don't know. Now, Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife has come up with a secondary draw. It's a loyalty reward draw. And basically what that is, and once again, we went in great depth to what that was last week, and go back and check out last week's show with John Hass, Joe McDermott, if you want to know more. But tags that are not bought by June 15th are going to go into that loyalty draw. And if you are one of those people that have put in every year for 23 years, you're going to have a high chance of drawing one of those tags, and then it's just going to go from there. I've got several years in. I don't have all. I've missed. I think I've missed one. It's 22 or 23 years total. I've missed one, but I'm in the next level up, and then so on and so forth. It's a great way for unpurchased tags for somebody to be able to get it that has been loyal to the program and has bought every year. So there's reason, folks, to purchase tag, and it's a great donation if you don't get drawn. June 30th. Those 594 people that got drawn for a Kentucky elk tag, you got till June 30th to submit your tag or submit your zone locations or your unit locations. And one of the myths that I want to debunk tonight, it doesn't matter if you put in for day one when you got your tag or you put in June 30th. It is not time sensitive. It is going to be a draw. You put in 5 preferences, and it's going to be a draw. It doesn't matter what day you put in. So if you're rushing and you think that, that's not true. And then you'll find out usually, I think the magic date somewhere around between July 7th to the 14th, you'll know by then what unit you got drawn for. So did I miss anything there, gentlemen?
Nope.
Let me just touch a little bit on the redraw. If they do not purchase their permits by the 15th, it will go into the redraw program.
That's what.
And it's going to be kind of crunchy for any of those that are in the loyalty redraw. you will have, which I was kind of told, I'm thinking they're going to try to notify that these redrawn tags by the 19th. So you still have to have your unit selections in by the 30th. So you're going to have to kind of shuffle there just a little bit. And to add to that, I had my first phone call today. I had a 72-year-old gentleman call me today that has applied for 23 years, and he's already planning ahead, planning on one of these redraw tags.
Yeah.
And I'll kind of get sidetracked here. I'm going to jump back to the ethics. That's what I told him. He's 72 years old, and he said, this will be my once in a lifetime probably opportunity to ever hunt elk in Kentucky. If you're a guide or anyone that's helping this man, put yourself in his shoes. He has no idea what's going on. He's put in his 23 years, 72 years old, and he knows this may be his one and only chance. Put yourself in his shoes when you start making decisions for him. I'll leave it at that, Trinity.
Very well said, Donald. Very well said. I appreciate that, brother. I appreciate that. Matt, buddy, what you got to add?
Manager of the IT
Buddy, every
department.
time I talk, it's like y'all can't. I had to change my name to manager of the IT department here, so you know that ain't true. I'm listening and learning on my own, but
You're going to have to work on your connection there, Mr. IT manager.
I can't do anything with him, Donald. He just, you know, he still thinks it's 1980.
Oh, you say his internet connection's back there going beep, 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 beep.
He's on dial. He's
Yeah.
on dial-up internet.
That's right.
if anybody wants to contact me about an elk hunt, you might want to pin the letter out, put it in a self-addressed stamped envelope, and mail it to me. That's the best way to get a hold of me is snail mail.
I thought he was talking about a GoFundMe page for internet. I didn't know where he was going with that.
Skylink.
Yeah.
Or maybe a new dial-up router there or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need your own satellite. I thought Harlan was behind.
Hey, guys, we got a good question here from a good friend of mine. Now, listen, if you don't know this guy right here, and I'm sure all of y'all may do, this is my good friend Paul Priest. He was on our show when we were traveling around, and he brought his lab on. And let me tell you something. You talk about a tracker. Now, this guy can track them up and find them. It's helped find many whitetail and elk. Has done a really good job. This is my good friend Paul Priest. He says, have there been very many elk took out of zone, been harvested out of zone? I have put in for the out of zone elk ever since it started. Just wondering, buying an out of zone, buy an out of zone tag. And I tell you what, I'm gonna let you all talk about the out of zone tags because that's something we don't talk about a whole lot.
Well, where you're at, you don't really have much out of zone area probably that the elk have moved into. And then Donald and I are fortunate that we have saw that in times past. But now, Donald, I'll say that there aren't many out of zone elk anymore. When we first introduced the elk and it seemed like the population was just rapidly expanding, it seemed to me that the out of zone elk were very frequent. And I think if you looked at the telecheck, if you research that really strongly and went to the out of zone counties such as Laurel County and some of those that are fringe counties, maybe Owsley, some of those, I think Owsley's out, but you'll find that there were elk harvested there probably from 2006 or so to probably 2011. But then after that, I don't know of very many at all.
That's pretty good years right there. I would say in that time frame that Gary just mentioned, it was probably double digits. But now, if you find an out of zone elk, I talked to hunters, and not in the past few years, with some of these deer hunters here in Laurel County, they'll get a picture of a bull, young bull or something on their camera. Hey, I'm going to buy me a tag. Well, he probably isn't going to be there by the time you get to hunt. And normally he's not. You'll get pictures, 2 or 3 that may be drifting through, and they're usually gone. But I would say right now today that it's very, very low number on out of zone elk.
Yeah, very good. Thanks for that. Now here comes the tough part of the show, boys.
Uh-oh.
It's the debunk. It's the debunk section of it. We're going to debunk some of these myths. And like I said, we're not going to get into any negativity. We're going to stay positive, and we're going to give some short comments on some of these. And I hope that this maybe helps some people to maybe understand a little more perspective. Listen, anybody can have an opinion about anything. Base your opinion on facts. And that's the most important thing. And at least give people a chance to explain themselves. And it doesn't matter what we do. And it doesn't matter if it's this business, if it's car salesman, if it's, restaurants. It doesn't matter. Every business has the good side and the not so good side. And one bad apple will ruin the whole bushel, if you say. And, sometimes there's things that happen in any business world that, gives us all a black eye. But it doesn't mean that we all operate like that. So here we go. You better put your big boy britches on for these. Y'all ready?
I need to go get my hat.
You might, son.
You can't offend me. I held the flashlight for my dad growing up.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm just thick-skinned. You're not gonna hurt my feelings at all.
I held the flashlight for my dad in my 30s before he left this world, and it was still rough. Yeah. Here we go. I guess the first thing we'll cross that we hear all the time is that you can't afford a guide. Elk guides will rob you or they charge too much. So who wants to tackle that one first? You go ahead, Gary.
Okay, so this is really tough to say, but I've had this private conversation with a lot of people. I feel like we live in a microwave society, and that unfortunately commercialized hunting shows have really hurt, because all they show is a harvest, a kill shot. There's so much more to hunting besides that. So coming from a commercial guide, that could sound hypocritical or cliche, either one. But what I'd like to say is you're not paying us to kill an elk. What you're paying us for is the 20 or 30 days before you ever get there that we're scouting, the thousands of miles, the working on our trucks. I remember one year that I didn't charge a dime for elk hunts, and I kept all my diesel receipts, because I had a diesel truck at that time, in the door of my truck. And I spent over $3,000 in diesel fuel. And then as a special added bonus, I spent $2,000 on the front end with ball joints and tie rod ends. So at that point, I said, I'm either going to have to charge or I'm going to have to quit. So not only that, but what about the food plots, the things that we're putting in to try to keep elk in the area, and then the expertise that we have. And, like with our hunts, we offer complimentary food and lodging, with those hunts. And we enjoy that. We enjoy that aspect of the hunt because it gives it a camp atmosphere and a lot of camaraderie, a lot of storytelling, things like that around the campfire. And I think people enjoy that aspect of it. But if my guides ever figure out, I hope none of them's watching, if they ever figure out what we're making on these hunts, if we were being paid by the hour, they ain't making $5 an hour, because they work hard to keep their people on elk, and not counting the work that goes into getting one out. I mean, I carried 150 pounds, 900 yards up a ridge last year, and just about gassed out. And that was the first trip of 3. So
it's all fun and games till the triggers pull, and then it gets
right.
real.
That's
real fast. Yeah. Go ahead, Donald.
I break it down for you on how you had it listed. If they can't afford a guide, hey, I can perfectly understand that. They could still contact any of us, or they couldn't me for sure.
Yep.
I will help them all I can for that because I understand that. Reach out to KEGA. Hey, I really can't afford a guide, but I need some help.
absolutely.
That would be my number one. How did you have those listed again, Trinity? Can't afford a guide and too expensive?
Can't afford a guide. They'll too expensive. They'll rob you.
Well, I'll stay away from the robbing part because I ain't never robbed nobody I know of. But on the too expensive, like Gary was saying, I've got my little goat wagons that I use and ride around in. And just on fuel, tires, one thing I always say, I go through about 2 sets of tires a year, 4 sets of brakes, set of shocks, and then the front end parts. And then every now and then on the 4th or 5th year, you're going to replace a motor or transmission.
Yeah.
Then we go back to if you are trying to lease some property to have a place to take hunters on. You've got that cost. Then you get into the liability insurance. Hey, I just love doing this. I call it charity work myself.
Well, and here's my take on it. So if you want to get down to brass tacks and numbers don't lie, if you take a look at the same thing you're getting, whether if you're all the way down on the Mississippi River, down in good duck country, and you're 6 to 8 hours away, or you're 2 hours away, you're within 1 day, you're within a half a day's drive to be able to hunt elk no matter where you get drawn at. That's not counting if you get drawn in Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Ohio, Indiana, Missouri, you're still close enough you can make it. If you look at the same product that we are given in comparison to out west, to get the quality of animals that we're after, that people that we're harvesting, to get the same experience, to get the quality, the lodging, the service, the field dressing, get it out, to do all those things. I can tell you right now, there may be 1 or 2 companies out there charging, I don't know. But on average, I'm talking about average of a normal hunt with all of us. Most time you're not even halfway there in price. We are the horse's tail on selling our product. But we are Eastern Kentucky people serving most of them Kentucky people. And we want to try to be affordable. We want to try to help as many people as we can. Yes, we are a business. We are a legitimate business. Most of us are LLCs, and all of us are sustained businesses, legitimate businesses. And when you go to your favorite mall, or you go to your favorite restaurant, or you go to your favorite place, or whatever else, and the parking lot's jam packed, and they're taking everybody away from McDonald's, where nobody ever quarrels about that. So we're not all that bad. There's good and bad in everything. Just like people who drive Dodges are the best, and people who drive Chevrolets and Fords, But but what I'm saying,
here we go with ego stuff.
Yeah, but all I'm saying is that on comparison out west with what you're going to go out west and to get what most of us are charging, you're probably not going to see an elk, or you definitely ain't going to harvest elk and may not get to see a whole lot of it. You're looking at a whole lot more money. So in comparison, we're kind of the horse's tail.
I agree with that.
Matt, you're my brain trust, buddy. What you got?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. So I like what you said about Eastern Kentucky folks trying to help, trying to be a legitimate cost and try to help Kentucky folks. There's when you think of Eastern Kentucky elk hunting, 90% of them tags are Kentucky residents. Okay, so we're not treating this elk hunting like a tourist activity. When you go out west, that is set up to draw in tourists. And when, listen to what I'm saying. Not tourists about the skiing and the sightseeing and all this, but out west, they know that they have a product that everybody in the country wants to go buy. And that's a Colorado elk or a Wyoming elk or a, New Mexico elk or whatever the case is. And so they're treating it just, when you go out there, if you go out there on a do-it-yourself hunt and you hike back in there 10 miles, which nobody hardly does, but you hike back in there 10 miles and you kill you an elk, you hike back out and there'll be somebody sitting at that trailhead that's willing to take their mule or their horse in there and pack that thing out for you. And I'll guarantee you that it's more than you paid for the whole entire trip. So, what they're doing is they're preying on people that come out there and want to have a good experience, to where in Eastern Kentucky, that's all inclusive for a fair, legitimate price. And we're just trying to treat people like we want to be treated. We're not drawing people from all over the country to come in here and have a tourist experience that we can charge more money for. It's just not true.
Well,
very good.
And I'll add to that, Matt, what you're saying. A lot of people think, oh, well, it's Eastern Kentucky. Those are hills. It's no big deal. There's a gentleman that hunted with me. I think a lot of him. He has a TV show. He didn't do any filming on the hunt that he had here, but his name is Wade Spencer, and his show is called Life's Highway. You can look him up. He and his friend had killed elk with an archery equipment opening weekend in like 5 western states. And I'm talking 340 class bulls opening archery in western states. And when he came here and hunted, he said it was by far the hardest hunt he had ever done. So it's not a
we talk about what kind of value that an outfitter brings. 15 years ago in Eastern Kentucky, you could show up without your experience, without knowing the property, and you could see from point A to point B of where you wanted to go. You drop yourself at point A today, as thick as Eastern Kentucky hills are, and you not only better have a map downloaded on your phone, you better be familiar with how to use that map, because there is no possible way that an unexperienced hunter with an unexperienced orienteersman from out west could come to Eastern Kentucky and drop themselves at point A and show up at point B without having a struggle. It is so thick. The terrain is so rough. And, the one thing that the outfitter brings is, through all their scouting, through all their, TLC, we've been doing it since 2001. So 22 years. Donald Thomas, 18, 19 years, I believe, is what he mentioned. I'm not sure about Gary exactly, but, those 20 years, we've learned the terrain. We've learned all of that, and we kind of have a sixth sense about where we are in Eastern Kentucky. And if you're not from here, you don't have that. So when you kill an elk and the first thing on your mind is, how am I going to get this thing out of here? The first thing on your mind better be, how are you going to get yourself out of there? That's a big thing that an outfitter does, is once the thing's on the ground, how do you get an 800-900 pound animal out of the woods?
That's right. That's where the work begins. Very well said. Tim Fannon's got a myth for us.
Uh-oh.
Chickens don't really have nuggets. Sorry, world.
There could be some truth to that.
That's true. All right, here's another myth. And we're going over just a little bit, and that's okay. Do-it-yourself hunts are impossible.
Not true.
I know.
Go ahead, Donald.
I don't know how that myth got started that you have to have a guide in Eastern Kentucky to kill an elk. You do not. And I'll be the first to say it. Do-it-yourself hunts are not impossible. It will be impossible if you're a lazy hunter. How about that? I'll reframe it to that. If you do not do your homework, and study,
going back to what Matt said.
He can hire a guide, Tony.
Are you pointing at me saying I'm a lazy hunter, or are you pointing at me saying I've already brought the point up?
Well, my original thought was you already brought the point up, but once I kind of put 2 and 2 together, go ahead, Donald. Sorry.
Well, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to call them a lazy hunter because they're not going to move. But what I will call lazy is they don't do their homework before the hunt. If you do your homework before the hunt, it is very possible.
Yeah.
Gary.
Yeah, to fail to prepare is prepare for failure. I mean, that's a common phrase in armed forces and law enforcement and fishing and sports in general, golf. I mean, you name it.
Is golf a sport, Gary?
What's that?
Sorry about that. I said, is golf a sport?
Okay. Donald's just jealous of my albatross last Saturday. So want a little money on that, but anyway, do it yourself. I talked to a lot of people, and I actually had a young man come by the booth while we were at Bardstown at the Kentucky Gun Company. And he said, thank you. He said, I wanted to meet you and shake your hand personally and tell you thank you. Fine young man, couldn't afford a guide. He was in a situation financially very young in age. And he and I talked on the phone even after he started hunting with a bow 10, 12, 15 times probably while he's chasing elk and trying to figure out. And so he was very appreciative of any information that I could give him. I was trying to give him tips on calling and all that stuff. But you absolutely can do it as a DIY hunter. You need to learn to call. You need to learn elk and all that, and you can get it done. Some of my hunters talk about that, and they talk about like a DIY or a semi-guided hunt, like a drop camp is what they'd call it out west, Matt. A drop camp where they set you up a tent and then they ride you in there and just leave you for the week. What those guys said was what we figured out a long time ago, and these guys were pushing 60 years old, and they've been hunting elk out west for 30 plus years, and they came to my camp, and they said they figured out that if you hire a local guide, you're going to kill a better quality animal faster 90% of the time than if you go on your own. Sure, you can get it done, but the animal quality may suffer. And that's just because of that key word, local guide. Yep. Local guide. That's why.
And I'm glad you brought that up. Once again, numbers don't lie. And Donald and Gary, you correct me if I'm wrong, 594 tags last year, about, I don't know if it was 46 or 48% success rate total for the state of Kentucky. And you might be saying to yourself, well, that's low. Well, that's low in comparison to what Kentucky elk hunting used to be. And there's been a lot of change just over 10, 12, 15 years. But that's a story for a different time. I would attest that 75% of that success came from guides and outfitters.
Success-wise, yeah, and especially with, I had that conversation today with some of them. They were mentioning 1 or 2 units in specific, and that's what I told him. You could thank a guide for that high success rate in a couple of those units for sure.
Yeah.
And that is a number we really need to come up with because I'm with you on that. Pretty high success rate.
Now, here's what I'm going to tell everybody. And I think this is the cut and dry of it. If you can come down here and you can spend the time, and as Matt and I have said for many years, if you can come over and kick some rocks over and look for salamanders, that's not literal. if you can come down here and you can talk to some locals and you can go to door and you can do some recon and spend the time for a do-it-yourself hunt, the time spent from the time you get that unit until September, because almost or November or December, January, before you hunt, whatever hunt it is, the time you spend down here in Eastern Kentucky without even boots on the ground where you're going to be at is going to be the make or break point for a do-it-yourself hunter. If you don't have that luxury and you thinking to yourself, you know what, I can go out and I can call up a turkey about anywhere and not even step foot on a property, you're already behind the 8 ball. So if you can come down here and you can spend the time and you can do it, you know, in a fashion where you can come multiple days, multiple weeks leading up to your hunt, then a do-it-yourself hunt is good. Or if you draw one of those coveted one spot only regulated areas, that's like winning the elk tag all over again, then maybe so. If you can't do that, then maybe you need to look at a guide service. And here's one of the biggest problems that do-it-yourself hunters fall into. They go on bad information that is years old. Yeah, we see elk all the time. We see elk up here all the time. They're up here in the droves. Well, when was the last time you seen elk? Well, probably about 5 years ago. Or man, we ain't seen an elk around here. They ain't been elk around here in 10 years. Well, those people, or a lot of those people, are used to going out riding on wheels and being able to see a nice reclaimed or fresh planted reclamation area and not olive overgrown areas or whatever else from back in the day. Things have changed. It is not fish in a barrel anymore. And Kentucky elk are tough. And the facts is that right around that 50% mark are going to harvest and 50% are not. But if you come down here and you enjoy the hunt, enjoy the sights and sounds, whether it's a do-it-yourself or you go off a guide, you enjoy and slow down. Those are the people that are the most successful. If you come down here looking just for a harvest, you come down here and trying to put a 400-inch mark on something like that, you might go away disappointed.
Yeah. Let me throw something in here, Trendy, if everybody can hear me. I guess we're good.
Yep.
Yeah.
So going back to that false information or information that's old, me personally, I think where a lot of do-it-yourself hunters fall short is they know somebody or they got a relative that lives in Eastern Kentucky, and that relative or friend has told them, oh, come on down, we can do it. I see them all the time. Well, you seen them all the time 10 years ago. When's the last time you seen it? So now, because you want to be the hero, your friend wants to be the hero and tell you that he sees elk all the time, even though he's not seen one in his backyard for 10 or 12 years. He is going to put you at a significant disadvantage of coming down there and harvesting an elk. And you're going to spend all your time. So I'm not saying that you don't have a friend or you don't have a family member that does have elk, but make sure you research that and you just don't go off of their word. Because if you come down and you put in all your time hunting a place that maybe in their mind they see elk all the time, but they really ain't seen one in 10 years, you're going to go home unsuccessful. And just to reiterate that point, Trendy, you and I were hunting last year with a fellow named Lester. And we went on a new mine, a mine that was public property that we had not been on before. And we went on this mine, and we actually asked the security guard of the mine, hey, have you seen any elk around? We're looking for an elk. And that security guard told us, buddy, I ain't seen elk in 3 or 4 years around here. I used to see them all the time, but I ain't seen one forever. Well, we got permission to go on up the mountain. We went up the mountain, and we wasn't there 30 minutes. We seen 3 elk. So
they about ran over top of
reverse. we now it wasn't 3 elk that we wanted to shoot, but they were there, and the security guard, telling us he hadn't seen one in 3 or 4 years. So you never know which way to go. It could be in your positive or it could be in your negative. But just make sure you do your research, and you can be successful. But like Gary said, playing to fail to plan, playing to fail.
That's right. That's right. Right here, Jason Kilgore says seen 60 to 70 elk in a regulated area recently. And Tim Fannin says the landscape of the mining and reclamation areas has changed big time since mining has slowed and is almost non-existent. The elk is the needle and the land is the haystack. Folks, elk are the way that elk are supposed to be anymore. Elk are not supposed to be grocery shopping like it was in the early going. And it has changed. And you need to understand that. And I hope folks understand that. And thank you all for those. We're going to get one more, and then we're going to draw a little bit of that expertise out of these two legends, as Bob Hunt called them. So elk guides are what's happened to all the elk in the decline. Man, that's a tough one. Donald?
Why do I get to start this? But oh, boy, that is a real myth there. I could attest that I doubt very seriously that the elk guides is the decline of the elk. Let's go back to the conservation side of it. There's many times that I have been in elk in the past that I could have probably went in there and killed 2 or 3 bulls back years ago in these herds, go in there and kill one bull and walk away from it. I'm not there to shoot a herd out and try to decline this whole herd. I don't know what to say on that one, Trinity, to be honest with you.
I do.
There you go. You should have started with Gary.
Yeah, let's go positive. Okay, so number one, we have a 1 elk policy, and it's in writing. We go over it before we go out and hunt, and it says this. It says that you have practiced as a hunter, and if we bring an elk into what you perceive is lethal range, and you take a shot with your equipment, unless we can prove with video or eyewitness evidence a miss, we assume it's a hit. Elk are a valuable resource. We don't have many of them. So I can tell you right now that I've lost about 6 elk in 16 years. And a couple of those were rifle, a couple of those were archery, and it happens. And then the other thing that I'll tell you is my guides that work with me voted to no longer do cow rifle hunts because we noticed in our areas that we hunt, units 2 and unit 3 and unit 5, a decline in cow and calf populations. That was our observation. Instead of our biggest bulls having 20 or 30 cows, our biggest bulls were having 3 to 5 cows. And everybody's running trail cameras. We're not seeing many babies. We're pretty upset about it. So we suspended all of our cow rifle hunts for a number of years. Now, we just recently introduced that because we saw an uptick in yearlings and in cows and in calves. And so we went back to about a 3-day cow rifle hunt. So, I mean, if you think about the money we could have made on cow hunts, that is a significant statement toward being a conservationist. Would you agree with that, Matt? Is that a significant
I absolutely would. I absolutely would. I mean, we talked about ethics a while ago, and this is something that Grace Elk have noticed on their own. This isn't something that come down from Fish and Wildlife. This isn't something that another outfitter guilted Gary into believing or his guides into believing. This is something that Gary and his guides got together and came up with on their own that they were going to suspend these cow hunts because in their areas they were noticing the population decline. So, you know what? Hats off to you, Gary, and your guides for doing that, and that's real stand up stuff there. Real stand up stuff.
So, as far as a population decline, look at the number of cows that we harvested when the number was pushed up to 1,000 tags. Every single one of those cows was pregnant, more than likely, in November, December, or January when we took them. Now, was I a part of that? Absolutely, I was. I was guiding cow hunts back then. So I was a part of that harvest, and I feel bad for that because we killed a lot of pregnant cows. And there's some other reasons for population decline, and I'm not gonna talk about that right now. I don't think it's the right time.
And let me say one. Let me say one other thing too. We're taking trail cam surveys and we're visual surveys and this and that. And to my knowledge, I know TLC is not, but I'm going to assume that Grace Elk and Donald, you all probably not either. But Fish and Wildlife still claims there's 10,000 plus elk. They're the ones with the high dollar equipment. They're the ones doing the infrared, imaging and all this stuff. And I know there's a lot of stuff being said positively and negatively about all that stuff. But, they're the ones saying 10,000 elk. And I'm not going to go against that and say they're not 10,000 elk because I don't, I'm saying I'm one person. I can only see so many elk when I'm out there. But the fact is this is one thing that I definitely believe. With all the comments about the elk decline, this is something that I truly believe. With the thickness, the vegetation, the Cerisa lespedeza, the autumn olive being thicker than ever before, and the sustainable food source for these herd animals being spread out further and further and taken over by these non-native species, it is spreading these herds out. It's not only just spreading the herds out further, but it's also cutting down on the number of animals per herd. So last year, during a gun hunt, I was standing 20 yards from 3 elk in an autumn olive thicket. And I had no idea they were there. I don't know how long they watched me. I thought it was a rock when I first seen it. And I got to looking, and sure enough, there was 3 elk come out of that autumn olive bush. So, there's not only is it harder to find the elk, but used to when there was 50, 100 elk in a group, now we're talking about 4, 5, 10, 12 elk in a group. Compared to what it was years ago. And it's because they're spreading out trying to find these sustainable food sources. And when you're looking for a few elk compared to a few hundred elk, it's a big difference. So I'm not saying there is 10,000 or there's not 10,000. I'm just saying there's more to it than just the numbers going down. That's just not the answer. That's the easy answer, but that's not the total answer.
There probably is, Matt. You're probably right to a point on that. But, I'll raise 2 points to what you said. And you could say it could be a counterpoint if you want to. If you don't, it's not necessarily a counter to what you're saying. But anyway, if you research the number of elk harvested from about 20 when they raised the tags to 1,000 in about a 8-year period, and then you also research the number of elk that were trapped and given to other states and private organizations and etc., I think you're going to come up with a number of 7,000 or 8,000. That's a lot of elk for a herd of 10,000 to be gone. Okay. So absolutely. The other thing that I'll say is you're right on the habitat. We've lost the quality of habitat because elk are grazers. but elk are elk are elk. And so even in the Rocky Mountains, in the wintertime, these elk gather up into these massive herds and they feed together. Well, we used to have that here. And I've got a picture on my website of elk viewing tour where, as best, 10 or 15 people counted more than 250 elk in that one herd. And they were all mixed in age and sex. There was bulls and cows there, and they were all running together. And that's something that we don't see anymore. So I think we may be fooling ourselves if we say that the elk have evolved in less than 10 years or a little more than 15 years and adapted to living in Kentucky. Because elk are elk are elk. They're still going to gather up. They're still going to graze. They're still going to do their thing. I just think we have a lack of habitat that makes that harder, like what you're saying. I think it makes the elk, it's harder for the elk to find one another.
They're still gathering up. But when you don't have enough food source in one area for a big gathering, then they can't do that. They can only gather in numbers that have a sustainable food source for them. And, used to 15, 20 years ago, well, we had thousands and thousands of acres of food source for them in one area. And today you just don't find that because it's all overgrown with non-native species. And so the groups, that's what I'm saying, they're still grouping up, but the groups that we're finding are much smaller than what they used to be.
That Trinity, that brings me to a question that I get a lot of times from people that ask me about the elk in North Carolina. They're like, why are those elk staying there? I said, that's the only grass around for hundreds of miles.
Yeah.
So those elk can't move around. They have to come back and rely on that grass food source right there.
I'll tell you that's exactly right. And I'll tell you the number one thing that stands out to my mind. I've worked for Kentucky State Parks for 22 years, and we started the elk tours here. A guy by the name of Ron Vanover, Charlie Logston, and some others. And I'll never forget, we all know where the bowl is at the ATV Center there in Knott County, the big bowl. And I'll never forget my first day on my first elk tour. We came up over the ridge, over the horizon, and we looked down in that bowl. And we stopped counting. But we stopped counting at they were 400 elk in that bowl. I bet there was 100 bulls, 300 cows. It was deafening, the bugles and everything that was going on. And they had a dust cloud coming. It is one of the grandest sights I have ever seen anywhere in my 43 years of existence in the woods. And those days are long gone, and everything y'all have said here is based on facts, and it's based on whatever, but it's changed from that. And I see hunters, and I'm not trying to make excuses, and I'm not trying to. So here's where I'm at with it today on a couple of different professional sides. It's like Matt said, we don't have this high-tech equipment to go out and count them. Nobody does. Even with the best counts from Fish and Wildlife, it's still a guesstimate. It's an educated number, and it's better than anybody else can give us as far as, whatever. But now elk guides are out there beating the bushes right alongside, neck and neck with Fish and Wildlife. We're out there in the trenches with them every day. And we got, most of us, 90% of us has got, the best at heart for this resource because we love them. We don't do this. I'll tell you what, you want to walk a mile in an elk guide, I've got an open spot for you. If you want to walk a mile in a guide shoe, y'all come on up here to Eastern Kentucky, and I'll set you out there, and I'll let you find all about it. You will see how big a boy or girl you are. Come on up and be with us. We'd love to have you. Just like Gary said in his comments the other day. But the fact is that Why focus on, if you're a Kentucky elk hunter with a tag, why are you going to sit and get bummed and get down about the population number? What are you going to do to change it? You're not going to do anything. Why are you going to focus on what may be a myth or what things out of your control? So here's what I urge people to do. Focus on the positive. You got a Kentucky elk tag. You want to find out ways on how to do better towards the herd? Join KEGA. Get on fw.ky.gov and read all that information. Look into the facts, don't focus on myths. But if you got a tag, you need to be focusing on that hunt. And you need to be doing what you can and focus on the positive. And get in, be a part of, don't be part of the problems with negative comments and things out of your control and trying to have all this knowledge you think you got when you ain't got it. And yes, I'm speaking pretty poignant to all of us, but be part of the solution.
Yeah.
And that's what you need to do. Too much, too harsh, what we think.
That's well said.
Well said.
Yeah.
You know,
very good.
Back to the DIY
Don't let the naysayers. I said, don't let the naysayers ruin your hunt before you even get here.
Yeah,
you got an elk tag, you got a chance to be out there in amongst them, and if you get down on yourself, Debbie Downer, and let somebody you co-work with get you down, it's not going to be enjoyable. You better come and look forward to the sights and the sounds and the opportunity to be out there amongst them.
Our good buddy Mark Campbell, and I appreciate Mark being on here. And Mark says they see horses with the infrared troop. And son, there's a lot of horses. There's a lot. Hey, I'm trying to capitalize on this horse thing. I am going to invent the Appalachian Mustang.
Oh.
And I'm going to TLC Outfitters. Look here, I'm going to self-promote now, big boys.
Oh, here we go.
TLC Outfitters is going to promote Appalachian Mustang tours. Born and bred right in the mountains of the Appalachian, son. I think I've got a niche. And you know what, Mark? That's a great point that Mark brings about. How many horses are seen? These are things, there's so many variables when it comes to population studies. And I'm going to tell you something right now, folks. Kudos to the men and women of Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife, the field staff that's out there fighting the fight with us every day. There's things that we don't agree with. There's things that we do. There's things where we wouldn't have had an elk herd if it hadn't been for a few individuals in this great department. This department that has set milestones and has done so many good things that we take for granted today, walking out in our backyard and seeing white-tailed deer and wild turkey, a record-setting year for wild turkey harvest and whatever else. Man, focus on things you can control and whatever else. But now Mark's exactly right. How many horses do we see? Tim Fannin, just like the airport here, tons of grazing. It's all about the habitat because they mow it up there for the hay. They all come together there. I hunt within a few miles of the airport, and the elk sign has basically almost disappeared from those areas because they love to be in those open grazing lands. Yeah. Brian Sand, right here, we got a good question for you legends. I like that, Bob. Hashtag legends. Donald Thomas and Gary Grant right here. Brian Sanders says, does shooting young bulls contribute to the lack of elk? What's your opinions? You know, we talk about in the whitetail world, hunting age and hunting mature bucks. How you feel about that?
I would say shooting young bulls will hurt the quality of your elk. That's where we're at now with our elk harvest. You know, I think our average elk harvest on bulls now is 3.5 years old, 3.5, maybe. I think that's where we're at the last two studies.
And a bull does not fully mature till 7 to 9 years old.
Exactly. That's my next statement. A mature bull elk is 7 to 9. And what we're doing with right now, and I'm not going to judge anyone on shooting a young bull because it's got to the point now that it's a pretty much a once in a lifetime tag, and they're seeing that, and they're taking advantage of the first opportunity they get.
If you remember, if you guys remember, we had a 4 on one side before you could harvest a bull.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, this is my personal and professional opinion. And I've not asked a biologist this, and I would like to ask somebody this. But I personally, for myself, I like the 4 on one side. Now, there may be biological data to that I don't know about, and I'm not going to even proclaim. But to me, I like that. Now, I'm going to tell you, that would decrease the harvest some if we say that.
It would really decrease our harvest, but it would sure help the quality of our bulls.
That's right. That's right. Very good question, Brian. We appreciate that. All right, guys, listen. Y'all got through the tough section. Here comes the fun section. And I can't thank y'all enough. I appreciate everybody sticking with us. Our good friends over at Eastern Outdoor Media, they weren't on tonight. We tried to pay respect to them. They got a show at 9 o'clock. Y'all need to go over, check them out. John Stepp's good friend of ours and all those guys and everything. But they're not on air tonight. So we got these guys kind of cornered here in Eastern Kentucky. We're going to take advantage of all their knowledge and everything. Donald Thomas. You got a hunter. You got a hunter that's out in the elk woods, and he's elk hunting. So we got all through all these myths and all this and whatever else. What's a piece of information? What's a tip and tactic to success? If you could only tell an elk hunter one thing that's out in the woods, what would it be?
You better practice enough. Don't miss. That is mine. If I do my job just like Gary said, I take it very seriously. If I get you in the position to take that shot, I have got faith that you have done your part also.
21 misses we had last year. Now, that's not 21 people. 21 misses, and we got almost all of them on video. And this is people, I'm not going to mention any names. We had one gentleman come out and miss at 160 yards. Shot a skull can at 200 yards the next day.
Yep.
And then he missed at 130 yards. It's tough. There's a lot of stuff. And when you say practice, I'm going to add one more thing to that, whether you're shooting archery equipment or gun. It's okay to get on a bench in this nice controlled environment and get on paper and get on target and get on line. Then that needs to stop. You need to do some laps around the house, do some jumping jacks, do some push-ups, run you a mile. Come back, sit down, twist around in the office binds you can think of, and that's how you need to shoot for your elk.
Yeah, I agree. Exactly.
Very good. Same question to you, Gary Grant. What would be a piece of advice you'd give to an active hunter?
Are you talking about a DIY or one that's hunting with me?
Either or both.
Well, a DIY hunter, I would tell them to not get locked down on one area, to move around. I think a lot of people mess up their hunt here and they mess up their hunt out west by trying to deer hunt elk. Elk walk 7 miles an hour. They'll move 40 miles in 3 days. So you got to have multiple locations to hunt to try to get on these elk.
Very good. I like that.
Second part to that would be cardiovascular fitness.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Going to make your hunt so much better that second, third, fourth day.
And Gary, contrary to popular belief, now I'm not going to mention any names in here, Matt Woolwine, but some of us, know that you can't sleep in till 10 o'clock and go hunt elk.
The other thing that Matt Woolwine knows is you better keep a bottle of aspirin in your backpack.
I heard that. Dude right here, son, has gave me more gray hair. I mean, you talking to a man back in his guide days before he retired. I mean, you talking to a guy right there. I mean, that had his hunter out, harvested a really nice elk, and he just thought it'd be a good time to have a heart attack.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
It is.
Yeah. And then
well, it's a good story now. Too bad.
Yeah. And then he decided to get us about 1,100 miles from home and decided to have another one.
Oh, he's gonna have to stop that.
And that ain't as good as new.
It's in.
I'll hit on Gary's cardio. That's what they really need to go. Oh, sorry about that, Matt.
Yeah,
I'm gonna start guiding with Gary so he can put me through the ringer and get me on a treadmill or something.
That's right. And Gary, I'm glad you said that piece of information. I was going to say earlier tonight, you know, if you come down here and say, we had talked there a while ago about if you're a do-it-yourself hunter and you come down here and you got a buddy and says, man, I got 200 acres or I got 100 acres, and you come down here and we see elk all the time. And you come down here and you laser focus on that 100 acres. Now, listen, we've killed elk on as small as 10 acres. And then can't find an elk on something as big as, 2,000 acres or something like that. But if you can expand that to multiple properties and get as many permissions, and you may have to ask 50 people and you get 3 permissions, but don't laser focus on one property, because you can go in there in the first, before daylight even hits, and blow that area out. Those elk are in the next county and you're done.
Yep. Yeah. That's right.
Very good. Yep. Here's another one of our members, Hurley Combs Jr. from Lost Mountain, said, just on, great group of knowledgeable fellas tonight. Job well done. But I'll tell you what, I don't know how much you all paid these members, Donald and Gary, for all this. I mean, we got legends from Bob Hunt, and now Hurley saying knowledgeable fellas. Y'all paying somebody off. Very good.
Left that all up to Gary. Gary took care of that all in advance for us.
Yeah. Matt, you're old school.
He is honorary treasurer, rather. He probably wrote them checks right out of the KEGA fund.
There you go. Y'all done figured me out.
It looks like another Rules and Ethics Committee coming up then. Meeting.
Hey, I done paid the people that's going to vote against me off.
Oh, okay. He's covered all the bases.
That's right. Hey, Matt, you kind of come from the old school days, but also you've been right there with me every step of the way, and you know a lot about it and what's going on behind the scenes, whatever. What would be a piece of advice you would give, whether it be a do-it-yourself hunter or somebody coming down here to go on a guided, outfitted hunt with a member of KEGA? What would be a piece of advice you'd give that active hunter?
Well, I've already thrown it out there, Trendy. My thing is, don't get on the Facebook, don't get on the internet, don't listen to your coworkers, don't listen to your buddies, about just the Debbie Downers. If you are negative about your hunt before you show up, and you're expecting, you're not expecting to be able to find an animal, or you're expecting to spend too much money with a guide, or you're expecting whatever the case is. If you let that put you in a negative mindset, when you're out there in the woods, you're not going to be willing to work hard enough. You're going to walk up to that first hill and you're not going to see no elk, and you're not going to want to go to the next hill, and you're not going to want to go to the next hill. Well, guess what? Keep that positive outlook, and you'll want to go to the next hill. You'll want to go over to the next rise. And guess what? Eventually, you're going to find something. Go to that next property. Don't get down on it because you've bought into everything that your coworkers and your buddies and everybody on Facebook has said negatively about elk hunting in Kentucky. Enjoy it. Be out there, see new property, meet new people, make new friends, your outfitter or whatever the case is, and really take in the sights and the sounds and the sunrises and the sunsets and the different animals and the different species that you can find in eastern Kentucky. Because, I'm telling you, man, I'm only 2 hours away from where we hunt, and my terrain, my countryside, all this is completely different. So if these guys are coming from out of state or they're coming from western Kentucky, you're going to see sights and sounds that you've never seen before in eastern Kentucky. And And whether you kill an elk in the first day or the last day, or you go home empty-handed, it is worth seeing that country and being out there amongst them and having that opportunity.
Yeah.
So,
let me chime in right here, if you all don't mind. You need to archive that, because that is the best advice that has been said all night long, is that positive mental attitude. When they come in here with that bad attitude, if you're out there having a bad hunt, and if you're down, don't you think for 1 minute that guy that's standing there with you in front of you is not feeling a whole lot worse than you are about the hunt. But if you keep that positive mental attitude, that is the best advice that's been given tonight right there, what Matt just said.
That's right. Hurley says best advice, and the same echo on the same thing. Enjoy your Kentucky elk hunt experience. That's right. Tag reduction in coming years, save the herd, and we can talk about that. I mean, KEGA has offered a lot of suggestions and stuff about tag reductions and things like that. So listen, we're not just a bunch of outfitters out there trying to get rich and trying to kill off all the herd and take all the land and all these different myths we ain't talked about. We actually love these critters, and we got the best at heart for them, and so on and so forth. So that is absolutely correct, man. I tell you, nobody wears a miss. Nobody wears a hunt that didn't go away with a harvest on their sleeve more than your outfitter and your guide. Because when you show up to camp, when you show up to your outfitter and your guide, I can tell you right now, for the next 3, 4, 5 days that you're going to be hunting, that outfitter and guide is already put in, as like Gary said, 20, 30, 40 days or months worth of work for you to come to camp. So, it's hard, and it's not just your harvest. I can tell you right now, the reason I started elk guiding, I loved them, but the reason I started elk guiding was that I couldn't get a tag, but the next best thing was being beside the woman, man, or child that did get the tag and have that experience and be able to put hopefully an influence in on that. So we work very hard too, and be positive, man. We're here to help.
And bum a little bit of meat.
They got stingy with the meat over the past few years. It used to come in groves, and I don't even see any anymore.
Well, they'd rather give up their wife as give you some milk meat.
I heard that. Folks, what we got in closing, Donald, listen, I can't thank you all enough. I appreciate our viewers staying with us. We've talked 2 hours, man. This is fantastic. And we can sit here and talk 2 more and not even scratch the surface. But in closing, Donald, talking about the Kentucky Elk Guide Association and all this stuff coming up, what you got for us?
I'll just kind of add there. I think we've got some big and better things coming up with the Elk Guides Association. You probably see some improvements come along here, just here in the next little bit, just to help out the elk hunters in general and the general public, and just kind of educate them and along with this elk herd here in Kentucky and our conservation efforts.
Yeah, man. And I want to add to that. Once again, doesn't matter if you own an acre, 5 acres, or 5,000 acres. Any and all conservation. And when we talk about elk, we're kind of focused tonight on elk, but all this conservation we're talking about, this burning, this non-native species reduction, forest stand management, all these practices aren't just for elk. All of these practices goes to all of the Commonwealth's wildlife species, huntables and non-huntables. It's just we're talking about elk tonight.
That's right.
These burns, you can burn today and the wild turkey will be in it tomorrow. I mean, we can go on and on.
Songbirds, buddy. Songbirds love these burn areas, and the warm season native grasses are going to be huge. Yep. I hear more quail right now in the areas that I hunt than I ever have in 16 years of guiding in those areas.
That's right. Gary, what you got for us in closing?
Well, just again, a shameless plug for Kentucky Elk Guide Association. I can't say enough about the people that are involved with this. When we first started, we reached out to pretty much anybody and everybody that had an interest in elk, and the guides that we could find on the list that were available. And we had this core group of people come through, and they're still maintaining that ship and trying to drive forward in conservation, education, and just trying to help influence the management of our herd. I mean, I absolutely love it. We say it all the time in our meetings, especially our closer meetings, maybe board meeting or rules and ethics committee or a committee meeting. We always say one thing we can always count on is the people that are on this meeting have the elk's best interest in mind and are quality people. They're ethical people. You know, they're trying to do the right thing. They're the golden rule, do unto others as you would have done unto you. You know, they're living by that golden rule. And I really enjoy collaborating and working with people that are like-minded.
Love it, man. Well said. What you got, Matt?
Well, I'm going to step away from elk hunting for just a minute. And I just want to remind everybody about, you know, our new Africa adventures that we can offer. And everybody that's on here, you know, we're talking elk right now. We'll be talking deer later in the fall. We always talk turkey in the spring. Just keep TLC in mind if you've ever considered an Africa trip, because that's year round. And if you're looking for something to fill your time and maybe something on your bucket list, keep TLC in mind.
I love it, man. Very good. John Pruitt, our good buddy that come down and hunted turkeys with us. I killed a stud of a bird. Said, going to have to get back down there and see y'all guys. That's right, John. We appreciate you very much. Gator Paul says, we got all the food Matt can eat down here. Let me tell you something, Paul. You better watch those words. You might be regretting those words come October, man, as we coming down there hunting gator. Let's see who else. And if I missed you all tonight,
Gary,
go ahead, man.
I'm going to put Gary's cardio training on hold, and I'm going to go see Gator Paul first.
And Gator Paul says, thank you all for all your part in the elk in restoration in Kentucky. We appreciate that very much, Paul. Man, can't wait to get to Florida. Got some incentive to get through a Kentucky elk season. Going to gator hunt, going to shoot fish, baby, in the Gulf. Going to do it all, man. I'm excited.
Hey, Trudy, don't eat that gator meat and make your hair fall out. I've got plenty of hair, so you can bring me your leftover gator meat. I'll take care of it for you.
Oh man, we love our Florida family. I can't say enough good things about Scott Sumter and the service he does for the FWC down there. Man, Scott, thank you so much, man. Wayne Hargabus, who's retired from that, we appreciate him. John Partain, Gator Paul and his family for all they do for us down there. Roll out the red collar. I don't know what these old boys from Eastern Kentucky ever done to deserve you all in Florida, but I'm going to tell you what, man. Y'all are class act. Thank you all so much. And thank you all for staying with us. Donald and Gary, thank you all for all you do for us. Thank you for, all the years. Thank you for being just good stewards of the land and of the resources. And we appreciate everything you do for the hunters and the Commonwealth. Folks, Kentucky Elk Guide Association, you need to check it out. Become a member. You want to talk elk, you want to talk how you can help with elk, become a member. Contact us today. You can check us out on Facebook. We're not hard to find. Become a member. We need you all, and we hope everybody has a great week. Matt, thank you. Guys, y'all stick around in the studio. We'll finish up after the show, folks. We'll catch you next Tuesday right here at 8 o'clock on air and outdoors with TLC Outfitters. We'll see y'all then.
Eastern Kentucky, where I was raised, where where the wildlife and mountains call my name. I was born to hunt, I was born to guide, a camouflage on a rifle by my side. Just good old country boys chasing dreams in the Appalachian Mountains, fields and streams. From those white-tailed bucks strutting toms, the bugling elks that are on the run. Where those dreams are made, the trophies is our game. The TLC Outfitters is our name.